Before I get going here, I really want to emphasize that I think Animal Well is a good game. I readily recommend it to anyone who finds the notion of a puzzly Metroidvania to be appealing. But I think Animal Well has a few flaws that keep it from becoming a truly great game. So just know that when I'm presenting my critical observations here, I'm doing so with the express purpose of wanting to make an already good game even better. Cool? Speaking of that label, puzzly Metroidvania that is, that's where most of my critique is coming from. Specifically, I think Animal Well is trying to fuse a couple of genres whose conventions tend to be at odds with one another. We have the big, sprawling, labyrinthine map that you expect from a Metroidvania, but a good chunk of this map consists of single-screen or single-room puzzle platforming sections, some of which invoke the platforming challenges of games like VVV, Super Meat Boy, and Celeste, albeit never going to the extremes those games do. Now, again, for the most part, this works out really, well for Animal Well. It's nice to break up that far-afield exploration of a Metroidvania with a little bit of a brain tickler or obstacle course here and there. The devil's in the details, though, specifically about the conflicting needs of these two design patterns. Where I felt this most keenly were respawns. You see, for games that demand a good degree of platforming execution like VVV, and Celeste, it behooves such games to keep the respawn loop short. Said another way, they should have frequent and nearby checkpoints, and these games often do. The goal is to test a particular screen or room, and to quickly restart the player at the point of the test where they failed. Going too long without a checkpoint stresses the player's patience, especially when they have to replay sections over and over again to get back to where they're currently failing. Contrast this with Metroidvanias, which are all about exploring vast expanses, oftentimes in alien or hostile environments. The challenge and mystique of the genre comes from how far you, as the player, are from an area of relative familiarity and safety at a given moment. Individual rooms or areas can have varying levels of challenge, but layered over top of that is a tension that builds as you push further and further into the unknown. Frequent checkpoints are thus antithetical to this design pattern. Metroidvanias are about traversing regions, not individual rooms. So, when it comes to checkpoint frequency, Animal Well has a serious conflict here. It resolves this conflict by unequivocally picking a side. In this case, by serving its Metroidvania interests over its single-screen platformer sensibilities. The result? Well, for me anyhow, a good amount of retread. Whenever I failed an obstacle course or the like, I got really tired of the long trek back from a distant save point. I use the word retread here to differentiate this from retraversal, which is a common element of a Metroidvania. Let me explain. In Metroidvanias, parts of the map are gated off until a player acquires certain abilities. So it's common to have to return to a previously explored area after you gain the requisite new powers. This is retraversal, which I thoroughly enjoy when it's done well. One effective way to do so is to signpost these ability gates, planting seeds into the mind of the player. So when they acquire the needed key for these gates later, they immediately know exactly where to revisit. It's an aha moment that can be a strong intrinsic reward for the observant player. Retraversal can be excellent when done well, but retread is never much fun in my opinion. Going back to the same areas over and over again in the same game state gets monotonous very quickly. Please note that I'm not complaining about the game difficulty here. In the case of Animal Well, I thought it was just fine, and the vast majority of the time my failures felt completely fair. My problem comes from the amount of time and repetition incurred when retreading back to the same challenge again and again. But given the design was serving its Metroidvania aspects first, I understand why it's like this. It is still frustrating though. This isn't the only problem I found with Animal Well's competing approaches. Another design aspect in which these designs butt up against each other is hard versus soft failure. We see this most readily with Animal Well's inconsistent treatment of the player's health pool. In single-screen platformers, hard failures are usually required to prevent the player from brute forcing their way to the goal, say damage boosting through a spike pit instead of doing the intended jumping challenges. In Metroidvanias, where we're going long distances between checkpoints, it makes a lot more sense to allow the player several soft failures along the way. It would be very frustrating not to have a bit of forgiveness or leeway when venturing into uncharted territory. And while a player may be able to use their big health pool to push through a single obstacle, they won't be able to do that for every obstacle in an entire section. Animal Well tries to split the difference here, which in turn makes its approach to the player's health somewhat confusing. Some enemies only do 1 heart of damage, while others are one-hit KOs. And it's not entirely clear from the first time you meet a new enemy type which is which. There's also situations where a soft failure essentially becomes a hard failure pretty quickly. There are some bonus health flowers that curious players can discover, but they feel like an underwhelming reward when some enemies can just insta-kill you. This brings me to another design decision where Animal Well breaks with Metroidvania conventions. Now, I will joke that I'm part of the Metroidvania orthodoxy. Super Metroid is one of my all-time favorite games, and in my opinion, the gold standard of this particular game design pattern. That said, I want to make it clear that I think breaking with convention can be a very good thing. We don't get fresh new ideas or new genres otherwise. But, on the other hand, game design conventions and tropes tend to exist for very good reasons, usually to address certain concerns. So before you throw a trope overboard, you should know what those reasons are and provide your own solutions for said concerns. Animal Well's eggs are arguably optional secrets that a diligent player can find by exploring, which is a pretty standard feature for a Metroidvania. But where they diverge from tradition is the way they reward the player. In a traditional Metroidvania, these optional secrets tend to give the player a small, non-gate related upgrade, usually something like more max health or greater ammo capacity. Despite being optional and secret, these little rewards serve 2 crucial purposes in a Metroidvania. As the player moves about this big, sprawling map searching for the critical path forward, these rewards can act as a consolation prize when players guess incorrectly. This helps to mitigate any frustration that may come from getting lost. Furthermore, as new players are more likely to get lost, this means they will end up with more of these marginal upgrades. This acts as a sort of organic balancing mechanism within a Metroidvania. The players that may need more health and ammo are the ones more likely to stumble upon it. Now, Animal Well's eggs behave like optional secrets, but each individual egg is not a marginal upgrade. Instead, you get rewarded at particular intervals of eggs collected. The fast travel flute at 8 eggs, the ability to mark your map at 16 eggs, the spinning top ability at 32, and a key item for the true ending of the game when you collect all 64 eggs. This altogether feels rather haphazard to me. When first collecting an egg, it feels like a trophy for completionists and not something impactful to gameplay. But then it's revealed that these eggs are gating off some pretty basic quality of life features for a modern Metroidvania, fast travel and map marking. Then, later, you get a gate ability in the top, and then arguably the most important key item in the game if you're gunning for the true ending. In short, Animal Well is inverting the received wisdom on optional secrets in a Metroidvania. And I want to be clear here, I'm completely on board with that. My issue is with how inconsistent it is doing so, and how that creates new design hiccups that it doesn't remedy or even address. Otherwise, I just have some minor quibbles about Animal Well's aesthetics. Its sound design is overall quite fantastic, but there's a lack of music across the game. I realize that may have been a deliberate creative decision, but my Metroid orthodoxy is rearing its head again here. As for the game's environments, sprites, and animations, it's absolutely gorgeous, especially the animal animations, which makes the decision to make the player character this one-tile little blob dude somewhat of a head-scratcher for me. I mean, the one-tile aspect makes sense in terms of maximizing screen space for platforming and the like, but given how good the rest of the game looks, I'm rather shocked that we went with this guy, as adorable as he is. I don't know, I would have loved to see this creator take a stab at a main character sprite like Super Metroid Samus or Alucard from Symphony of the Night. Make no mistake, despite my critiques here, Animal Well is a good game. I just think it could have been a better one. That's all I got. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.